We have an x-axis and a y-axis. Let us also create an axis that represents the angle theta. The green line rotates by the angle theta. For each value of theta, the x-coordinate represents the cosine of theta, and the y-coordinate represents the sine of theta. The angle theta can range anywhere between negative infinity and positive infinity. This two-dimensional pattern is what we refer to as a sine wave. We can change the sine wave's amplitude, phase, and frequency. Suppose we have two sine waves that are identical except for the fact that they have different amplitudes. If we add these two sine waves together, the result can be represented graphically as shown. Now, suppose that the two sine waves also have different phases. The sum of these two waveforms can be represented graphically like this. So long as the two sine waves have the same frequency, their sum will always be another sine wave of the exact same frequency, but with a different amplitude and phase. Now, suppose that the two sine waves also have a different frequency. If we add together sine waves of different frequencies, then the resultant waveform is no longer a sine wave. We can add together 3 sine waves. We can add together 4 sine waves. We can add together 5 sine waves. In fact, we can add together an infinite number of sine waves. Here, by adding together an infinite number of sine waves, we have produced a pattern that looks like this. Now, let's add together a different set of sine waves. By adding an infinite number of sine waves, we have produced this other pattern that looks like this. As it turns out, every possible waveform and function in existence can be generated by just adding together different sets of sine waves. In the 2 examples shown here, the sum of all the sine waves happened to be repeating waveforms. In these cases, only certain frequencies of sine waves were needed. And each of these sine waves had a measurable amplitude. Non-repeating waveforms can also be generated by adding sine waves together. But in these cases, sine waves of every possible frequency may be needed. And each of these sine waves have an amplitude that is infinitely small. When an infinite number of sine waves with infinitely small amplitudes are added together, the result can be a waveform that we can see and measure. This is the same way in which, if we add together an infinite number of infinitely thin sheets of paper, although each sheet of paper by itself has zero volume, their combination can be an object with an actual volume that we can see and measure. Some sheets of paper can be larger than others. Although the volume of each sheet of paper by itself is zero, when we have an infinite number of sheets of paper added together, we will be able to measure the object's density, and the density in some parts of the object will be higher than the density in other parts of the object. Similarly, when we add together an infinite number of sine waves of infinitely small amplitudes, we will be able to measure the density of frequencies. And this density of frequencies will be higher around some frequencies than others. This is what we refer to as the frequency spectrum of a waveform. All signals and waveforms have a frequency spectrum. When signals and waveforms interact with physical objects, their frequency spectrum is altered. By understanding how the frequency spectrums are altered, we can understand how the signals and waveforms are altered. The signals and waveforms that we see in real life have a beginning and an end. However, each of these signals and waveforms can be thought of as the combination of an infinite number of sine waves, and each sine wave has no beginning or ending. It is just that all these sine waves exactly cancel each other out at all times, except during the time that the signal is present. Therefore, all signals that we see in real life can be thought of as the combination of an infinite number of sine waves that have always been present since the beginning of time, and which will continue to exist through all eternity. More information about mathematics is available in the other videos on this channel, and please subscribe for notifications when new videos are ready.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I hope you get an idea about the topic of discussion, isn't it? So, we have discussed the first unit, that is linear differential equation with constant coefficient, in detail, and the solutions of those linear differential equations. Let us now extend with the second topic, that is transform. The two types of transforms we are going to discuss throughout the second unit. First is integral transform, which is a Fourier transform, and the second is Z transform. Is it? So related to Fourier transform, just now we all have seen the video how the sine waves and their phases and amplitude changes according to the phase, right? And the transformation and the formation of square and triangular waves we have seen, depending upon the phase difference, isn't it? So you already have studied in detail about the Fourier series in M2, isn't it? So we are going to extend the notion of Fourier series to the Fourier transform, which is actually the integral transform, right? So before actual start with the transform, let us have some discussion over the Fourier series. What do you know about the Fourier series? Yes. What is the Fourier series representation? And tell me its consequences. Any one of you? Hmm? No one knows about the Fourier series? Hello? Am I audible? Is the screen visible? Oh, sorry. The screen is not visible. Please check. Is the screen visible to all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, have you studied the Fourier transform in M2? I think the second or third unit is there. Fourier series, not the transform. Fourier series
Yes.
and the
Yes, sir.
representation. Fourier series. So, uh, someone please tell me about something related to Fourier series so that I'll come to know in how much
It
depth
is,
you have studied about Fourier series. Yes,
it
it is.
is an infinite series based on sinusoidal and cos
Yeah.
waves.
Hmm. So basically, can we have a Fourier series representation of any function, or is there any
No, there
conditions?
is a limitation that it should be a periodic function.
That is the first condition, the function.
Yeah.
Suppose if we consider the function f of x, then it must be must be periodic, right? That is correct one. Then is that the only? If we have a function periodic, then can we have a Fourier series representation? That function must have satisfy a few more conditions, right? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Those conditions are called Dirichlet conditions.
Yes.
What are those Dirichlet conditions, or at least outline? Dirichlet condition says function must be f of x must be
Real valued function.
real valued, right? Real valued and continuous also, no? Continuously differentiable.
Yeah.
Continuously differentiable, and even it must be integrable also, right?
Yeah.
Integrable. So these are few conditions, Dirichlet conditions. If the function satisfies these conditions along with this periodicity, then we can have its Fourier series representation. So tell me, for example, if I have the function f of x is equals to x, can we have its Fourier series representation? If x lies between minus infinity to infinity, can we have the Fourier series representation of this function? Or if the function, or tell me, I'm giving some functions fx is equal to say sine x, in between say x belongs to, or sine theta, or theta belongs to minus infinity to infinity, right? Then fx is equals to say x square, or polynomial function, any polynomial function, or a logarithmic or exponential function. Then can we have its Fourier series representation? X belongs to minus infinity to infinity. So tell me whether it is possible to get its Fourier series representation for the first one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what about second? Tell me, does this first function satisfies the conditions given? Of course, it satisfies the Dirichlet condition, but what about the periodicity? Is it periodic?
No.
Fx is equals to x is not periodic, right? In this given interval. Let us say if someone is getting confused about getting periodicity, then simply I'll say draw the graph of that function.
Repeats itself at a
Yeah,
certain
that
period of
function.
time.
So fx is equals to x means that is a line, straight line passing through the origin, y equal to x, right? And it is not getting repeat if I consider the interval minus infinity to infinity. So how will it be periodic, and how do we find its Fourier series representation if it is not periodic? But you must have calculated the Fourier series representation in M2, I think, for the same function. But then how? That is why he said yes, because you have remembered that I have calculated the Fourier series representation. So there must be a restriction on this interval, isn't it? So we can restrict, we can design a function f of x is equals to x in the interval, suppose x lies between say minus 1 to 1, and f of x is periodic. If we say like this, then of course we can have its Fourier series representation. Is this point clear?
Yes, sir.
So if we go for the length of this interval, what is the length of this interval? It is 2, no?
2.
2. So we can say, as we are saying function is periodic in this interval, or x belongs to this, then suppose this is minus 1, 1, minus 2, 2, then we can extend this function over the interval minus infinity to infinity, such that in the interval of length 2, it will be a periodic, or the same graph will be repeated. Like from minus 1 to 1, if we have this graph, then same graph will be repeated. Just a minute. Suppose the graph of the function from -1 to 1. I'm very bad in drawings. This is suppose actually this is a line. Okay, I'm trying to draw. Actually, it is possible in that hexagonal, but I don't know how do I draw a straight line in this. Okay, so this will be a straight line, and the same graph will be repeat in the interval of length to like this. My 1 to 1 to 3, then 3 to 5, like this. Is this clear to everyone? So that we can design a function like this, so that it will be a periodic and we can get its Fourier series representation. So that is very important condition. What is the periodic condition? F of x plus t must be equals to the original function f of x, and this must be for all x. Then we say the function is periodic with the period t, right? With the period t. Is this clear to everyone? Tell me about the second one. Can we have its Fourier series representation? Second one. Sine is already a periodic function.
Yes.
So we can have. Even for the third one also, we have to design a function like this, so that we restrict the interval, and in that interval the function is periodic, isn't it? So we can have its Fourier series representation. Clear? So now tell me, what is the Fourier series representation of a function which is periodic, of course. Suppose if I define a function f of x in the interval -infinity to infinity, and it's a periodic function, fx is periodic, then what is its Fourier series representation? Yes, f of x is equals to
A naught by
a naught by 2, right, plus
summation of
a n cos of
plus
n pi x by l
plus
plus
bn
bn sine n pi x by l. Thank you. So this is the Fourier series representation, and n varies from 1 to
infinity.
right? Where this function is periodic in the interval, say we can say the arbitrary interval, say 0 to 2l or -l to l, right? The two types of intervals are there. This is two-sided interval, both sided we can say, and this is only one-sided interval. And accordingly, we're having the formulas of these a naught, an, and bn according to the interval, right? Isn't it? Yes or no? Where these a naught, an, and bn are called Fourier coefficients, right? Fourier
Yes, sir.
constants or Fourier coefficients, and they're having the integral formulas in the interval either 0 to 2l or in the interval -l to l. Isn't it? So we can see this is the Fourier series representation in the interval -l to l or 0 to 2l, with a naught is equals to 1 upon l from -l to l f of x dx, and an is equals to 1 upon l integral from -l to l f of x cos of n pi x by l dx, and bn. Right? And if the interval is defined in the half interval, say 0 to l, right? Then how do we find its Fourier series representation? What we do, we extend this half range into full range, either from -l to l or from 0 to 2l. That will be the full range, and then we use half range expansion formulas, half range cosine or half range Fourier sine series. So generally we extend this interval into the two-sided interval such that we can use the nature of function f of x, whether it is even or odd, right? And accordingly we use the half range Fourier expansions. So if the function fx is even, then we use Fourier sine or cosine expansion.
Cosine.
Yes, Fourier cosine series, right? if the function is even, and if the function is odd, then we
Sine.
use Fourier sine expansion or a sine series. And accordingly, if the function is even, then which coefficient will be zero? A naught, an, or bn?
Bn.
Bn will be zero. If the function is even, then Bn is equal to zero, because this is even and this is odd, and odd into even is always odd, right? So that is
Odd.
why, and the
Okay.
integration of odd function in the two-sided interval from minus L to L will be always zero,
0.
because ultimately integration is nothing but the area under the curve. And since if the function is odd, odd means what? It is symmetric about the origin. So for example, if I consider the f of x is equal to x, which is odd function, so if I consider the interval from minus 1 to 1, and if I measure the area under the curve, then we can see this area is getting cancelled with this area if I take the integration from minus 1 to 1, right? Minus 1 to 1 x dx. So what it will be? It will be 0. And because that is nothing but what? That is nothing but what? Integration of odd function in two-sided interval will be 0, and that is nothing but the cancellation of areas. Is this clear to everyone? So ultimately, integration is nothing but areas. That is why this Bn is getting 0, because of integrand odd function. Is this point clear to everyone? You can ask your doubts if any in this. Someone have replied in chat box. Let me see. Okay, so and if the function is odd, then a naught and an will be 0, because integration, we just have seen integration of odd function in minus L to L will be 0. And here also, this cos is even and fx is odd, so integration multiplication of odd and even is odd, and integration of odd in two-sided interval will be 0. That's why a naught and an will be 0 in case of odd function. I hope you all have remembered these things. A naught, an will be 0, right? So what we're going to do, we are going to now express this cos and sine in terms of their exponential forms. So can anybody tell me the exponential forms of cos and sine? I think we have discussed them in first unit. Just a minute, let me write. Who's that? Sakshi. Okay, please tell me. Cos of theta. Cos of theta is equals to
e raised to x plus e raised to minus x upon 2.
Okay, here x is
e
theta.
raised to theta plus.
But that is actually for the hyperbolic cos and hyperbolic sine. Actually, for normal cos and sine, the formulas are different. Yes.
I theta.
Exactly. E to the power I theta. And when
plus
I is introduced, it becomes complex, remember. So e to the
plus
power
e
I
raised to
theta
minus I theta divided by 2.
2. And for sine?
E raised to I theta minus e raised to minus I theta.
Upon? Divided by?
2.
2i. That is what the difference actually between cos and sine. Clear? So it must be 2i there. So be sure about this. These are the normal trigonometric functions, sine and cos, in terms of exponential, and they becomes complex now when I is introduced. So you can see the cos and sine are the complex function actually, isn't it? We can represent them by Euler's formula also, where e to the power I theta kya hota hai? It is cos theta plus I sine theta. This is the we can say polar representation of complex number. There are three representation of any complex number: z equal to x plus iy. That is called the Cartesian form, because that is in terms of Cartesian coordinates x and y, right? The second one is the same complex number we can represent in terms of polar coordinate, that is r into cos theta plus I sine theta, and that is called a polar form of complex number, right? Polar form. And the third Third representation is r into e to the power I theta, and that is called the exponential form. So that is why this exponential, if we compare polar and exponential, then e to the power I theta will be equals to cos theta plus I sin theta. Is this clear? So if I write this formula for e raised to minus I theta from this, if I replace theta by minus theta, then cos of minus theta will be cos theta, and sin of minus theta क्या होता है? Minus sin theta, isn't it? So that is why this will be the formula, Euler formula for e to the power minus I theta. And when we add these two complex number, we will get a cosine expansion or cosine formula, and when we subtract these two complex number, we will get a sine formula. Is this point clear to everyone? And how do we get this formula? That is because of Maclaurin series expansion, Taylor's and Maclaurin series expansion. What is that? We all know the Taylor's series expansion, or we can say Maclaurin series expansion for e to the power x. What is that? Yes. What is the Maclaurin series expansion for e raised to x? Yes, any one of you? Actually, we have used several times, and you must know this expansion. So that is equals to what? 1 plus x square by 2 factorial plus x cubed by 3 factorial plus and so on. This is a Maclaurin series expansion. Is it? And what is the Taylor's Maclaurin series expansion for cos x? That is equals to 1. Okay, let me write the Maclaurin series expansion for e to the power minus x also. When I replace x by minus x into this, what I will get? 1 minus x plus x square by 2 factorial minus x cubed by 3 factorial plus and so on, right? Alternate plus minus. So if you look at this expansion, that is a combination of two expansions. What are those? That is sine and cos. Because the cosine expansion is 1 plus x square by 2 factorial plus x raised to 4 by 4 factorial plus and so on. I think there must be a alternate plus minus, na?
Plus minus, yes.
Plus minus, and the expansion for sine is what? Sine is equals to x minus x cubed by 3 factorial plus x raised to 5 na? 5 by 5 factorial minus x raised to 7 by 7 factorial plus and so on, isn't it? And when we multiply by I to sine, and when we add, we will get this expansion e to the power x. And if we multiply, if we subtract these two expansions, then we will get the expansion of e to the power. So these are actually the interrelated, correlated things, Taylor's and Maclaurin series, then sine and cosine in terms of exponentials. So you must know these expansions, these three expansions at least. Okay, so similarly, we have the expansions of cosine. Let me write here only so that you can compare and you will not get confused further. Okay, so what is the cosine hyperbolic expansion? Cos of theta is equals to, I can write hyperbolic cos theta in terms of exponential. How do I write? It is e to the power theta plus e to the power minus theta upon 2, and hyperbolic sine theta can be written as e to the power theta minus e to the power minus theta upon 2, right? Is this clear? So make sure that these are the normal trigonometric functions and these are the hyperbolic functions in terms of exponential. So with the substitution of this cos and sine in terms of exponential as a complex functions into this here, when I substitute the cos in terms of exponential and this sine in terms of exponential, this fx becomes a complex function. Is this clear? So when it becomes a complex function, we can combine all these terms, and what we get, we will get the function like this. fx is equal to summation cn e to the power I n by x. See, I'm not going to discuss the proof of this formula. If you want me to discuss this, then I can explain later separately if you want me to explain this. But that is not important for the exam point of view. That is why I'm not discussing that proof. How do we get this? Just need to remember that when we substitute the exponential forms of this cos and sine into this, and by combining all those constant terms, we will get the uh, form of fx in terms of infinite series like this. Series runs from minus n to minus infinity to plus infinity cn e to the power I n by x by l, where the value of cn is 1 upon 2l from minus l to l f of u e to the power minus I n by u by l du. Clear? Now, when I substitute the value of this cn into this summation, what I'll get, or first of all, if I extend this summation, just now I have seen, I told you that summation is nothing but what, or integration is nothing but what, summation of areas, right? Sum of areas, and this summation is nothing but the sum of areas. So we can extend this summation notation to the integral, so that will be integration from minus infinity to infinity cn e to the power I n by x by l dx, right? And if we substitute the value of this cn from this formula, then we will get f of x in terms of two integrations. And if we take the limit of this l as l tends to infinity, what we will get, again the second integral will be from minus infinity to infinity, first integral will be from minus infinity to infinity, and that will be a Fourier integral representation formula, and that is important to us. So you can see here, this is what the Fourier integral representation, which is obtained from the complex form of Fourier series. This is called the complex form of Fourier series. How do we obtain this? By substitution of cos and sine in terms of exponential. You just need to know this. The proof is not important. Okay, and when we substitute that cn into the f of x, we will get this Fourier integral representation, and this is very important to you actually. The question in competitive examinations will be asked on this: the Fourier integral representation of the function f of x is. So that is in terms of two integrations, where there are two variables lambda and u, both varies from minus infinity to infinity. F of u e to the power minus I lambda into u minus x du d lambda. Okay, so let me write again. F of x is equals to 1 upon 2 pi integral from minus infinity to infinity, second integral, say u from minus infinity to infinity, f of u e to the power minus I lambda into u minus x du d lambda. यहाँ तक क्लियर है सबको? Is this clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
And this is the very first important formula in the Fourier series representation. Actually, we are not going to use this formula for actually solving the Fourier transform problems, but you must know this formula because that is the basic, and that is the origin of Fourier transform. Okay, Fourier integral representation. This is integral representation, and the transform is different. So remember, when we are writing the value of f of x, then that is called the Fourier integral representation. Fourier integral. Let us now proceed with the transform, Fourier transform. So what is the Fourier transform? The Fourier transform of f, the function f of x, or it is also called inverse Fourier integral. Okay, so Fourier transform is also called inverse Fourier integral. Let me tell you, when from this formula, let me clear all these things here. From this formula, when we when we split this function, exponential function like this, e to the power minus I lambda u into by multiplying minus I lambda inside, e to the power plus I lambda x f of u. Okay, let me write separately. Just a minute. F of x is equals to 1 upon 2 pi integral lambda from minus infinity to infinity into another integral u from minus infinity to infinity f of u e to the power minus I lambda u into e to the power I lambda x du d lambda. Then this inner integral, so this inner integral, if we denote separately, which is a function of u, right? This inner integral is a function of u. So if I denote it separately as a, because this integration, if I take this inner integral, which is where u is variable and lambda is constant, so when we solve this integration, that will be a function of lambda, right? Is this clear? So when we solve this inner integral, that will be a function of lambda. ठीक है? So when we solve this inner integral as u is variable, okay, and when we substitute the values of integration, limits of integration into this, lambda is constant, so we will get some function of lambda. We will let us denote it by f of lambda. So when I write in terms of f of lambda, then how do I write? F of x is equals to 1 upon 2 pi integral lambda from minus infinity to infinity f of lambda e to the power I lambda x d lambda, right? And that is actually the simplified Fourier integral representation. Fourier integral representation, where this inner integral f of lambda is called the Fourier transform. Fourier transform. Is this clear? So that is what I have explained here. That inner integral we have denoted by f of lambda, and that is integral from u from minus infinity to plus infinity f of u e to the power minus I lambda u du. And when we substitute that f of lambda into f of x, that f of x is 1 upon 2 pi lambda from minus infinity to infinity f of lambda e to the power plus I lambda x du. Actually du must not be there, it must be d lambda. Is this point clear to everyone? यहाँ तक clear है सबको? Hello?
Yes, sir.
If you are still confused, let me explain again, because these formulas are very important and we actually are going to use these formulas. So see here, the Fourier series representation, sorry, Fourier integral representation we have denoted by f of x is equals to integral from minus infinity to 1 upon 2 pi, na? So f of x is equals to 1 upon 2 pi integral lambda from minus infinity to plus infinity, another integral u from minus infinity to plus infinity f of u e to the power minus I lambda into bracket u minus x du d lambda. When I split this exponential function, I can write this inner integral 1 upon 2 pi integral lambda from minus infinity to plus infinity integral from u from minus infinity to plus infinity f of u e to the power minus I lambda u, and if we take du inside, and then the remaining things outside the inner integral, that is e to the power minus minus plus I lambda x d lambda, right? So this inner integral we have denoted by f of lambda. Let f of lambda is equals to integral u from minus infinity to infinity f of u e to the power minus I lambda u du, and that is called Fourier transform. This is called Fourier transform. Okay, so with substitution of this f of lambda into this f of x, what will we get? F of x is equals to 1 upon 2 pi integral from minus infinity to infinity f of lambda e to the power I lambda x d lambda. Is this clear? So these two formulas are very important. This is the formula of Fourier transform, and this is the formula of what? Yes, this is Fourier integral. Is this point clear now, or any doubt? Hello?
No, sir.
Other people's, please do reply in chat box at least. Everyone, please do reply in chat box if it's clear. Very good. So in this point, up till now, the important point is the Fourier integral representation and the Fourier transform. These are only the two important formulas we actually going to use. The rest thing is the preliminaries required actually, that we must know. Okay. So let me tell you the points of confusion. Most of the students are getting confused while writing these formulas. They are confused in the limits of integration. So remember, if we are writing the formula of transform, that is f of lambda, then the right hand side integral is with respect to u. Remember, there are only two variables, u and lambda. Okay, so remember, if we are writing the function of lambda, then the right hand side integral is with respect to u, and if we are writing the function of u, we can say actually we all know that in definite integral we can interchange the variable. So here I can change this x by u also. Okay, so that is what I'm saying. If I'm writing the formula of function of u, then the right hand side integral is with respect to lambda. That is the first point of confusion. Is this clear to everyone? Hello? So always remember, the Fourier transform is with respect to u, and Fourier integral is with respect to lambda, the right hand side. Hello? Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So next one. Let's see here. Since by Euler's formula e to the power minus I theta is equal to cos theta minus I sin theta. Just like the Fourier series representation, we have seen half range Fourier sine series and half range Fourier cosine series. So we are having the Fourier sine expansion, sine transform and sine integral, and cosine transform and cosine integral here. So with the help of this Euler's formula, we can get those. We can see, we all know e raised to minus I theta क्या होता है? Cos theta minus I sin theta, isn't it? So when we substitute this e to the power minus I theta, which one? This we can say, or into this one. इसमें अगर e raised to minus I theta का value आप substitute करते हो, where theta is lambda into u minus x, then what I'll get? This is nothing but cos of lambda, cos theta na, cos of lambda into u minus x minus I sin lambda into u minus x. Is this clear? F of u into this by substitution of that formula e raised to minus I theta is equals to. So by substitution of this and by multiplying by f of u inside, okay, so this is cos which is even and this is sine which is odd, and based on this nature of function f of u given, if it is even, then even into even is even, and if it is even, then even into this odd will be odd, and integration of odd in two-sided interval will be 0. Is this clear? So in that case, the integration of second term will be 0, and we will get only the first term. You might be getting confused. Just a minute. Let me explain again. Let me explain here. So let us start with the Fourier integral representation we have written. F of x is equals to 1 upon 2 pi integral from minus infinity to infinity, integral from minus infinity to infinity, f of u e to the power minus I lambda into u minus x du d lambda. Okay? So when I substitute e to the power minus I theta, e to the power minus I theta क्या होता है? Cos theta minus I sin theta. So here e to the power minus I lambda into u minus x क्या हो जाएगा? Cos of lambda into u minus x minus I sin lambda into u minus x. Right? So when I substitute this into f of x becomes 1 upon 2 pi integral from minus infinity to infinity, another integral from minus infinity to infinity, f of u, and this will be cos of lambda into u minus x minus I sin lambda into u minus x into du d lambda. Is this clear? So that is equals to 1 upon 2 pi, and when I split that integral inside, so that will be integration from minus infinity to infinity, f of u cos of lambda into u minus x say du, and because linear integral is with respect to u, right, minus I into integration from minus infinity to infinity f of u sine of lambda into u minus x du, and outside it is d lambda. यहाँ तक clear है सबको? Is this clear? Is this step clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
So now, depending upon the nature of this function f of x, you tell me when f of x is even, what will happen? When f of x is even, this is even and this is even, cos is even, right? So even into even is even, and integration of this even in this two-sided interval will be 2 times from 0 to infinity. Is it right? So I can write this as a 2 times from 0 to infinity f of u cos of lambda into u minus x dx. Why? Because of this is actually du, because of even function. Is this clear? Because we all know if the function is even, just like cos is even, right? What is the graph of cos? Like this. And integration of even function in two-sided intervals, say suppose minus pi to pi or minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. So that is just addition of these two areas, na? So if I calculate this area, then I can multiply it by 2. I'll get the same area. Is this clear? So that is why
Yes, sir.
I can write integration of even function in two-sided interval will be 2 times from one-sided interval minus I times what will happen here? Here f of u is even and sine is odd, so that becomes odd. Even into odd, and integration of odd is what? In two-sided interval it is 0, so that is why here we will get the second integral will be 0 d lambda. This is outside from minus infinity to infinity 1 upon 2 pi, and that is the value of f of x. Okay, so 2 will get cancelled, and everything will be in terms of cos. So that is called Fourier cosine integral representation. Is this point clear to everyone? So from this we will get a Fourier cosine integral. Clear? And if the function is odd, then what will happen? Second integral will be non-zero, right? Because odd into odd will be even, and here odd into even will be odd. So in that case, the first integral will be 0 and the second integral will be non-zero, and that is in terms of sign. Therefore, it is called Fourier sine integral representation. Is this point clear to everyone about the Fourier cosine integral and Fourier sine integral?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So you can see these formulas. Equivalent forms of Fourier integral. Actually, what we did here, we have obtained these two Fourier cosine integral and Fourier sine integral with the help of original Fourier integral only, right? This is original Fourier integral formula. Fourier integral. इसी से हमने उसके दो फॉर्म्स निकाले, Fourier cosine integral representation and Fourier sine integral representation, depending on this nature of function. Okay, so that is why these two forms are equivalent to this. That is why they are called equivalent forms. So you can see here equivalent forms of Fourier integral representation. Right? So fx is equals to 1 upon 2 pi this, and fx is equal to, okay, so that becomes 2 will get cancelled here when we write this is as a 2 times. So 2 will get cancelled and it becomes from 0 to infinity. Actually, that must be inner integral. Okay, and based on now the nature of function here, we can see we can extend this cos term, cos of lambda into u minus x will be cos lambda u cos lambda x plus sine of lambda u lambda x. Actually, okay. Okay. With substitution of this, what we'll get? This integral, the last integral on substitution of this cos of a minus b, we will get this form, where a of lambda will be this and b of lambda will be this. Okay, and when f of x is even, then even into even will be even, and this a of lambda will be non-zero in that case, and b of lambda will be 0 because this is even and this is odd. And if f of u is odd function, then in that case b of lambda will be non-zero and a of lambda will be 0. So based on that, we have the two forms. We can see here sine and cosine integrals. What are those? If fx is even, then b of lambda is equal to 0 and a of lambda is non-zero, and that is 2 by pi from 0 to infinity f of u cos of lambda u du. Okay, and that is called actually Fourier cosine transform, we can say. When we substitute the value of this a of lambda, when we substitute the value of a of lambda into this, a of lambda is already 0. What we'll get? Everything will be in terms of cos, and that gives a cosine integral representation. You can see here. So fx is equals to 2 by pi integral from 0 to infinity. Actually, previously it was 1 by pi, right? And then again, when we write lambda as a 2 times from 0 to infinity, then that 2 will be here. Remember, you can see here, if you are getting confused, you can see here we are getting, actually here it must be 0 and here it must be minus infinity. Okay, so एक तो already 0 हो गया, and being 0, that 2 is getting cancelled, right? This 2 is getting cancelled. Now ये भी 0 हो रहा है, तो ये भी हम इसको भी हम 0 कर सकते हैं. So that will be 2 times. So therefore 2 by pi times. You can see. So therefore this is the formula of Fourier cosine integral representation. This is Fourier cosine integral representation. And if we consider the inner integral separately, which will be a function of lambda, then that is called a Fourier cosine transform. Fourier integral and Fourier transform. cosine transform. Is this clear? Hello? Is there anyone who is having doubt in this?
No, sir.
Okay. तो यहाँ हमने फिर से दो फॉर्मूलेज डिस्कस किए, न्यू फॉर्मूलेज. ऑलरेडी वी हैव डिस्कस द नॉर्मल फूरियर इंटीग्रल, right, and Fourier transform. Now we have discussed Fourier cosine integral and its transform, Fourier cosine transform. The four formulas up till now we have discussed. So this is Fourier cosine integral and this is Fourier cosine transform. When if the function is even and if the function is odd, actually we can denote that cosine transform by fc of lambda. C is just for the cosine transform notation. Don't get confused with the notation. And when the function is odd, then a of lambda will be 0 and b of lambda is non-zero. When we substitute, we will get everything integrand, the whole integrand in terms of sign. Therefore, it is called the sine integral representation. And when we denote this inner integral as a function of lambda separately, f of lambda, then that is called a Fourier sine transform. So these two formulas are important again. Fourier sine integral representation and Fourier sine transform. Okay, formula number 5 and 6. Is this clear? If the function is odd, then we can have Fourier sine transform and its integral. Okay? So you can see these formulas. So let me explain in a blank slide. So firstly, we have seen Fourier, I'm writing here, Fourier integral representation. What is that? Okay, before that, the main formula of Fourier integral representation is f of x is equals to 1 upon 2 pi integral from minus infinity to infinity, that is lambda integral, and this is u integral from minus infinity to infinity, f of u, this is f, okay, f of u e to the power minus I lambda into u minus x du d lambda. All right, this is Fourier integral. With this, on substitution of or the expansion of this exponential function, we get the simplified Fourier integral. What is that? F of x is equals to 1 upon 2 pi integral from integral, we can say lambda from minus infinity to infinity, f of lambda e to the power I lambda x d lambda, right? Where what is f of lambda? F of lambda is equals to integral from minus infinity to infinity f of u e to the power minus I lambda u du. Okay, and what it called? This is called Fourier transform. Please don't get confused. If fx we are writing, then that is Fourier integral, and if we are writing Fourier f of lambda, function of lambda, then that is Fourier transform. Okay, this is the formula number 1. This is formula number 2. Then on extension of this main formula, in terms of cos and sine, we have got Fourier cosine and sine integral representation. So Fourier cosine integral is given by f of x is equals to 1 upon 2 pi, sorry, it is 1 upon pi, na? It is 1 upon pi or 2 by pi?
2 by pi.
It is 2 by pi integral from 0 to infinity, second integral, we're writing inside. So that is f of lambda, and that is related to cosine. So we denote it by fc of lambda. So fc of lambda cos of lambda u d lambda, where fc of lambda is what? Fc of lambda is integral from 0 to infinity f of u cos of lambda u d u, right? Is this clear? So this is called Fourier cosine transform. Is this clear? Formula number 3 and 4. Then if p of lambda is a of lambda is 0, then we have got the Fourier sine integral and transform. So what is the Fourier sine integral? Fourier sine integral is given by f of x is equals to 2 by pi integral from 0 to infinity f of lambda, which we have denoted by s, fs of lambda, s for sine, right? Fs of lambda sine of lambda u d lambda, isn't it? Where this fs of lambda is, yes, what is the formula of fs of lambda? It is integral from 0 to infinity f of u sine of lambda u du. Formula number 5 and formula number 6. These are only the formulas, 6 formulas throughout the unit. Sorry, throughout the
सर वहाँ पे लैम्बडा
Fourier
into
transform.
x ही है ना,
हाँ, sorry,
लैम्बडा into x ही है ना, sin लैम्बडा into x.
यहाँ बोल रहा आप?
हाँ सर.
No, lambda u.
सर
Just
लैम्बडा मींस u minus x होता है ना, तो मल्टीप्लाई किए तो फिर
ये बोल रहे हो ना आप?
सर आपने पहले जो स्टैंडर्ड फॉर्मूलाज बताए थे ना, उसमें लैम्बडा into x था आई गेस.
Okay, just a minute, let me check. Okay, here in f of x it must be lambda x, sorry, f of x. So here it must be x, na? And here also it must be f of x, right? Is it okay
Yes,
now? Yes, thank you. So that is correct now. So these are only the 6 formulas required in the topic Fourier transform. So please tell me if any confusion. The last formula is Fourier sine transform. Okay. So when we use Fourier cosine transform, yes, when we use Fourier cosine transform, if f of x is even or odd, even function, remember. And if the function is odd, then we use Fourier sine transform and the Fourier sine integral. And if the given function is neither even nor odd, then we use the normal integral and its transform. Actually, the normal integral and transform is applicable to all, but to reduce some calculations, we can check the nature, and accordingly we can use the sine and cosine transform and the formulas. Is this clear? So you can see the table of formulas. If the given interval is minus infinity to infinity, then we have these 3 formulas along with their integrals. But if the interval is half range, then we extend, just like the Fourier series, we extend this half range into full range, and we use the same formulas for the full range. Clear? Is this clear? So that's it.
Yes, sir.
This is all about the Fourier transform. The rest part is only the discussion of examples on this. I think the theory, this is actually the theory part. Okay. We will stop today here, and from the next lecture, for 2 to 3 lectures, we'll discuss the examples only. Okay. Will it be okay, or shall we discuss one example here today? If you want me to solve, discuss one
Sir,
example, then
what,
we can
sir?
discuss. Will it be okay? Hello? Shall we stop here today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. So let's have an attendance.